When you think of a legal fact, what comes to mind? Probably something physical, right? A signed contract, maybe a stamped birth certificate. But what if I told you that in today's world, a simple click, a crypto transaction, or even an algorithm's decision can be just as legally binding? That's what we're diving into today, how this shift into the virtual realm is fundamentally reshaping the very foundation of law. This video summary is based on the works of Professor Vihar Kiskinov. His research provides the essential framework that will guide us as we navigate this very complex and really important topic.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll set the stage with some context on law meeting the virtual world. Then we'll nail down the fundamental concepts and compare the old with the new. After that, we'll dissect what makes up a virtual fact, see how they build into more complex structures, and wrap up by looking at the new legal horizon, the big challenges ahead.
Okay, let's get started. Section 1. Context, law meets virtuality. So the core idea here is pretty straightforward. Things that matter to the law are moving online. Think about it. We're signing contracts, we're setting up companies, we're even voting in digital spaces now. This isn't just a matter of convenience. It's a massive shift in what the law even considers a fact. And as you can imagine, this opens up a whole world of new opportunities, but also some really significant legal challenges.
Now, to really get a handle on this, we need to be on the same page with our terminology. So let's dive into some fundamental concepts.
So, what's the classic definition of a legal fact? For a long time, it's been about phenomena in our material reality, things you can see and touch. A birth establishes you as a legal person. A signature on a piece of paper creates a binding contract. These are tangible events that kick off real-world legal consequences. But here's the thing. The information society doesn't throw that old definition out, it just expands it. A legal fact can now come from the physical world, sure, but it can also come from the virtual environment. Both of these realms now have the power to create, change, or even end legal relationships. And that brings us to a really crucial new idea, the virtual legal fact. What are these? Well, they're facts that arise, exist, and are used exclusively within the virtual environment. They're born digital. They often have no physical counterpart at all. You can see why for the legal world, this is completely new territory.
Okay, so what does this actually look like in the real world? Or I guess the virtual world. You're actually dealing with these all the time. Every time you click, I agree on a website, boom, that's a contract. Registering for a new platform, you've just created a legal relationship. We can get more complex too. Things like voting in a DAO, a cryptocurrency transaction, or an automated system issuing you an official e-certificate. Every single one of these is a legally important event that takes place entirely in the digital space.
All right, we've got our definitions down. Now let's put them side by side to really highlight the differences between traditional and virtual facts. If we look at this table, the shift becomes really clear. For traditional legal facts, the source is always material reality. The model for it exists in legal norms, and the record is on something physical, like paper. Now look at the information society. We still have all of that, but we've added a whole new layer. The source can now also be virtual facts. The model can be built into IT code, and the record can be electronic, like in databases or registers. It's not a replacement. It's a fundamental expansion across the board.
So what exactly makes a virtual fact tick? Let's go a bit deeper and look at their anatomy, their unique characteristics, and what sets them apart.
Virtual facts have some really unique properties. For starters, they're intangible. You can't hold a database entry in your hand. Their registration is often instant and automatic. Think of a blockchain timestamp. They don't leave material traces, which of course creates huge challenges for evidence. And importantly, they can be created by automated processes without a human lifting a finger in that moment. And maybe the most interesting part? Some of them are reversible in ways physical facts just aren't. Imagine trying to undo the signing of a paper contract, but undoing a digital transaction in certain systems? That's possible. We can also break them down based on where they come from. You have primary virtual facts, which are born digital from the get-go. Minting an NFT is a perfect example. Then you have derivative facts. These start out in the real world, like a paper document, and then get scanned or converted into a virtual format. You can see why this distinction is so important when you start talking about proof and authenticity. Here's another way to look at them, by their scope. A one-off fact is just what it sounds like. It's relevant for a single, specific legal relationship, like one online purchase. But then you have fact conditions. These are ongoing. Your verified digital identity is the perfect example.
That one fact serves as a condition for you to access tons of different services and enter into all sorts of legal relationships over and over again. Okay, so these individual facts don't usually float around on their own. They tend to link up, forming more complex legal structures. Let's look at how these building blocks fit together. This leads us to what legal experts call a set of legal facts, or sometimes a factual composition. The easiest way to think about it is like a legal checklist. For a specific outcome to happen, say getting approved for a loan, it's not just one thing. It's a whole set of individual facts and conditions that all need to be met and verified. And here's a great example of what's called a uniform factual composition, where the whole process stays in the virtual world. You submit an application electronically, the system automatically checks your data in Register A, then checks it against Register B. Once all the facts are confirmed, poof, an e-certificate is issued automatically. Every step is a virtual fact, all linked together in a seamless digital chain. But of course, it's not always that clean and digital. We often see what are called different type compositions. This is where the physical and virtual worlds have to work together. Registering a new company is a classic case. You might need to submit a notarized paper document. That's a material fact. And you have to complete an electronic registration. That's a virtual fact. You need both for the final legal outcome. Now, if we zoom out even further, we get to something called the juridical-factual complex. This is basically the master file, the complete, one-time realization of a whole legal procedure. It's not just the facts for one action, but the entire collection of facts related to a legal entity. All the entries in a trader's registration file, for example. You can really think of it as the complete digital biography of a company or person in a legal sense. So, after all that, where are we heading? This new reality is opening up a whole new legal horizon, and frankly, it's one filled with some profound challenges and a lot of unanswered questions.
And these are some of the biggest questions we're facing. How exactly do you prove a virtual fact in court when there's no paper trail? If an algorithm's action creates a legal consequence, who's responsible? The person who wrote the code, the company that owns it, the AI itself? How do we balance the need for transparency with the right to data privacy? And maybe the biggest one, how do we get countries all over the world to agree on a single set of rules for these digital events that don't care about borders?
And let's be clear, these aren't just academic questions. New laws are tackling them right now. Take the EU's Digital Services Act. A key analysis points out that if a platform's algorithm has automated knowledge of illegal content, the platform itself can be held responsible. Think about that. The AI's knowledge becomes a legal fact, and that fact triggers liability. And this all leaves us with one final and, I think, critical question to ponder. When an AI's decision creates a legal fact, who is truly accountable? The creator? The user? The machine itself? The way we decide to answer that question is going to define the next chapter of law in our information society. Thank you for joining me for this explainer.